All right, so let's go to Google here and then just type in ask a simple question, right? Um, uh, let's see, average income of San Francisco. Okay, so now here's a couple things to think about. All right, so we have a number here, right? You Google it, and here's a number that comes out. Okay, now first of all, is this a population statistic or a sample statistic? Okay. Now, clearly, right, Google did not ask everybody what their income is or measure what the income is. So this is a sample statistic. Okay, that's an important thing to keep in mind. Even though it says population here, but this really is a sample statistic. Right? It is an estimate. Right? It's not even an average. It's the median. We'll talk more about what median is. Okay, later, in chapter 3. But then that's okay. So if it's a sample statistic, well, then we should take a look at where's the sample coming from. Okay, now we see here, here's the United States Census Bureau. Okay, I hope most of you fill out your census. Right? But let's take a look at our census here, and this is the question that they will ask. Right, your wage and salary, interest, dividend, blah blah blah, right, retirement, and so on. Right. Okay. Now here's the thing, right? A couple of things we want to think about is, well, you know, how honest do you think people are answering these census questions? I don't know about you, but if the government is coming asking me how much money do I make, and even though they tell me that, hey, the IRS is not going to know this, right? I probably will be reluctant to report a lot of things. Okay, but that's just me, right? Now, all right, so that's one issue, right? How do we really know? So that's the quality of the data. Okay, and second, the accuracy, right? This measurement error, right? When people fill these census out, I mean, there is hundreds of questions on here. People might get tired, so they didn't fill this. And also, not everybody filled out the census, right? And is there a bias towards the people who choose to fill out the census against the people who don't? Okay, so these are all the things that we have to think about, and then we'll learn. And then in this semester, we're going to learn, right? What are the issues if we have these biases? Okay, so that's something important to keep in mind. And I hope you get the sense here that even as a simple question as what is the average income of people in San Francisco, it's not that clear, right? Now, this is an estimate. Right? It is a sample statistic, and you know what? This might very well be the best estimate that we got. Although I would make a couple comments here. I don't think this is actually the best source, right? The Census Bureau, right? I think the best source will probably be IRS data. Right? That's probably more accurate. Right? This must be usually more truthful than census data because it's the tax, so it's not actual it's not self-reporting, right? And so on. Okay, so these are kind of the thing that you just want to think about. Okay. All right. Here's a quote I really liked: "Without data, you're just another person with an opinion." Okay. Now, so data sets, elements, variables, and observations. Okay, so these are all just terminologies, and we'll understand this a little bit more in next class when we do our math review. So a lot of the terminologies that we're going to be using, we're borrowing from set theory in mathematics. Okay, don't worry. It's just because the word theory is in it doesn't mean it's hard. All right. Now, okay. So here, right, we have a data set. So data set, it just means describes everything here. Right. And the data set here is five companies. And there's some information about each of these companies. Okay. So 5 companies, we say they are 5 elements. We also say that there are 5 observations. Now, why the 2 different names or 2 different words for the same thing? Well, because one is borrowed from set theory. So in set theory, each entry here is an element, right? Or each sample is an element. Okay, but in social science, we say each sample, right, is an observation. Okay, so just 2 different contexts. Where that's why we have 2 different words. But that's okay. Now, we have 5 companies here. Here are the company names. Okay, but what are we measuring about each company? We're measuring which stock exchange are they in. Okay, notice this is not a numerical measure. This is the characteristic measure, but that's okay. All right, and then we have the annual sales. We have earning per share. So we have 3 pieces of information for each element, for each observation. Therefore, we say this is 3 variables, right? So let's say, for each of you in class, I could take each person. So if there's 20 of you, then if I collect data from all of you, then it'll be 20 observations or 20 elements. And let's say that I measure your height and then also record your blood type. Okay, and that's it. So then I will have 2 variables for each person, okay, for each of you. So there'll be 2 variables. Okay, and then finally, then how many entries will there be in the data set? So you simply multiply, right? So for example, there's 3 variables here, and then there's 5 observations. So 5 times 3, 15. So there's total of 15 different entries in this data set. Okay, all right, a couple more definitions. Right? A couple of definitions here. You can just look at it and think about it. And then we're going to be using this. Again, nothing really hard here. These are just definitions. And so once we start looking at actual set next class, looking through the handout and just practicing, hopefully most of these will come back to you. Okay, all right.